One of my shrimp has just passed. Let's figure out why. First thing that we might be able to see is the white ring of death, and the white ring of death is an indication of a failed molt. It specifically indicates the separation of the tail molt and the head molt, which are supposed to be in one piece, and because of that separation, the shrimp is not able to flip its carapace over its head with the momentum that it carried from its tail. The second thing that we can see is the presence of Cladogonium. Cladogonium is a parasitic epibiotic, which means it dwells on the surface of an organism, green algae, that first was discovered in Asia. And it's a very important cause of a lot of epibiotic-related morbidity in dwarf shrimp. It is very, very commonly confused with Ellobiopsidae. Ellobiopsidae is a group of protists that are more closely related to dinoflagellates, so basically like bacteria, and are ectoparasites of like small crustaceans, like very, very small crustaceans, like for example krill and copepods and water fleas. It's editing me, so when I was trying to go find footage for this video, I found this image called Ellobiopsidae on top of the shrimp from a website called aquariumbreeder.com. Do not go to this website. They are spreading lies and misinformation on the internet. Do not read their articles. I couldn't find the original article for which this image was used, but it doesn't matter because, ladies and gentlemen, they're lying to you. They're telling you that this is a shrimp when this is obviously a krill, and there's 3 ways that you can tell, and I think that by far the most egregious and obvious is the fact that it has no eye stalks. The eyes are far too big to be a shrimp. The second way that you can tell, of course, is that the krill has 3 body segments, and the shrimp only has 2. And the last way is that krill have way more legs than shrimp do. So yeah, that's how you can tell. It's just insane to me how, in this day and age, we're gonna mix up crustaceans that are in completely different orders. For the record, krill are in Euphausiaceae and shrimp are in Decapoda. However, you know, they might look similar to most people because they both belong to the class Molluscostrata. So there's a little taxonomy lesson for you. I was so mad about this, I had to say something about this because I'm gonna look like the person in the wrong when people like go and search up for this image and find, oh, this is a shrimp. Well, what the frick? Why did you use this in your footage of a krill? And this is obviously, guys, this is a krill. Do not even. Ellobiopsidae is almost always fatal to the animals that it infects. However, Cladogonium is not always fatal because it can be treated using salt dips, hydrogen peroxide, and sometimes medicated food with varying degrees of success. Other times, however, and as is true in this case, it was fatal for my shrimp. So I intended to talk about Cladogonium for the remainder of this video. However, it is extremely hard to find, you know, easy information. Number one, because Cladogonium is, of course, having a lot of misinformation spread about it. People think it's Ellobiopsidae, people think it's eggs. Just, it's all over the place within the shrimp hobby itself. But outside of that, in the research area, Cladogonium doesn't have a Wikipedia article. So it wasn't as easy to get the information. But that's fine, because I don't mind doing a little research. You know, sacrificing one for the good of the many. So here I am. So Cladogonium is, as I think I said before, tentatively seated within the family Trentipoliaceae, which is a family of green algae. It was formerly classified as within the order of Cladophorales. However, there are some very distinctive differences that I personally agree would place it within Trentipoliaceae instead of Cladophorales. And by the way, for full transparency, I have a bunch of tabs up on my computer right now because there's no way I'm going to be able to remember all this information, so I'm just hopping between them. Cladophorales has a lot, it's just green, it's normal green algae. It's not parasitic, well, unless you classify Cladogonium within it, in which case it is, but let's ignore Cladogonium for a second. Cladophorus is an order of green algae that is just regular old algae. It includes the clade Siphonochladus, which is normal-ass algae. It includes Pythophoracea, which is also normal-ass algae. Like the kind you would see in your aquarium, you know, like it kind of looks like green hair algae. And it also includes Cladophoraceae, which is the family that includes some members of that might be seen in saltwater aquariums, like Chitomorpha. It's a very common
macroalgae for its utility
if you have a reef tank. But otherwise, unless, you know, ignoring Cladogonium, there's not any you know, in parasitic epibiotic algae. Now let's talk about Cladogonium. Cladogonium, what makes it special is its rhizoidal system. You can think of a rhizoid as the root structure of like a plant. Like if you imagine a plant, it's got roots on it, right? A rhizoid is like that for algae, but it's like really, really small. But, you know, they're both the same. They both get nutrients from the surrounding area. In the case of Cladogonium, the rhizoidal cells itself will, you know, penetrate through the exoskeleton of the shrimp. We're going to be talking about shrimp because that's the most relevant thing to this video. And then it will infiltrate, you know, all the surrounding tissues. So like its actual skin, and then its subcutaneous skin. And in some cases, if it gets bad enough, it can even infiltrate the spinal cord and the eye stalks. So, of course, the shrimp will activate its immune system response by sending, you know, its hematocytes or whatever. Because of the placement of its attachment, it inhibits a lot of movement from the shrimp. Because one way that shrimps are able to easily move around is through using their pleopods. In addition, their pleopods are used for a variety of other things, like, you know, storing eggs, and being able to molt easily. However, with the presence of an infection in that area, and specifically the growth of an algae in that particular area, it inhibits a lot of the mechanics of the shrimp being able to move around. So while the Cladogonium infection is going on, you might notice the shrimp gets really sluggish. In addition, with the fact that the rhizoids have to penetrate, you know, stick themselves through the muscle tissue of the pleopods, this can also lead to secondary bacterial infections that are, you know, also frequent in shrimp just generally. And because of this, there's a non-zero chance that the cause of your shrimp's death might be attributed to other causes besides just Cladogonium. Speaking on survival, Cladogonium-infected shrimp can survive for like, you know, a period of weeks to even months. And typically they eventually succumb to, you know, the stress of having this infection go on for so long, or the nutrient depletion because the rhizoids are actively sucking the nutrients out of their body, or in my case, there was a molt failure when the shrimp attempted to molt. In the case of the infection inhibiting a molt, one of the primary reasons is that the rhizoids anchor the old exoskeleton to the new exoskeleton it's trying to shed off. So in the case that the shrimp is trying to leave its old shell, it can't do that because there's something like, it'd be like if you were like trying to remove a cucumber on a chopstick, if the chopstick is like attached to your body. That's kind of how I imagine the shrimp would see that. Sorry for the weird example. I was just thinking of that because I recently fed my main tank with a cucumber slice on a chopstick. So I thought that was topical. Another aspect about Cladogonium is that it is very much what we call an opportunistic parasite. That it does is, noticeably, the infections of Cladogonium typically happen alongside environmental factors such as like overcrowding or poor water quality or ammonia, which would also be an aspect of poor water quality. I don't know why I said that. But having high ammonia or high nitrate are examples of poor quality, and this may impact your shrimp's ability to fight off the infection. It's very common for Cladogonium to flare up after a shrimp has been being held in suboptimal conditions because many aquatic animals are directly impacted by stress more easily than we are. Something that I think is really interesting that I don't think I talked about enough was the fact that the Cladogonium is seemingly conscious, in major air quotes, of its survivability relative to the host. And what I mean by that is that at some point during its life cycle, it will start to generate chloroplasts in its zoospores, which is what gives it the green color after some time. And these chloroplasts allow the green algae to actually do algae-related things and start photosynthesizing. Now, this is really important because let's imagine you're a parasite and you're living off of your host organism and you're actively sucking the nutrients from their hematocytes of your organism. You'd better make sure they live long enough for you to reproduce or at least do something useful with your life. Famous quote by Charles Darwin, by the way. Anyway, I just think it's really cool that it starts to reach a stage where it understands that it's sucking a lot of nutrients. It's not going to be sustainable, so then it starts generating the materials necessary for its photosynthesis in order to keep surviving and eventually reproduce, even if sometimes that's not possible if you have really good water quality, like I do. Not to brag or anything, but my water quality is really good. It's no biggie. So yeah, just wanted to interject with that because I think that is the most unique Cladogonium. She's not like other girls. She's not like other algae aspect of this algae. If you find yourself with a Cladogonium infected shrimp, the first thing that you should do is give it a quarantine tank of its own. The second thing that you should do is start a routine of giving it salt dips. You can find the measurements for how much salt to put in a particular container online, but what seems to vary a lot is the frequency. I saw people doing it, once every other day, and I saw people doing it twice a day. The important thing to remember is that you should do it consistently, because consistency is the key that will kill the Cladogonium faster than the salt dips and the osmotic pressure will kill your shrimp. That's why salt dips are so effective, because it's like how your body increases the temperature to kill off the bacteria, and then lowers it before you yourself can die of that increasing in temperature. It's kind of like that. The third thing that you should do is give it hydrogen peroxide. I've seen dosages of 1.5 milliliters per gallon, and I haven't seen any other conflicting sources that indicate a different dosage per gallon. So I'll just say go with that. That seems pretty reasonable. The fourth thing that you can try is you can try turning off the lights. I don't know how effective this will be for people who have planted tanks with their shrimp, but turning off the lights, at the end of the day, Cladogonium is an algae, and if you cut off its light source, it might have a worse time surviving. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Oh, one more thing is if your shrimp passes from Cladogonium, make sure to remove the molts from the tank. Because that is a known method that Cladogonium can spread, is from shrimp eating the molds and then getting it themselves. So make sure to do that. But yeah, that's about it. So yeah.